My pleasure to introduce our next speaker. Bob is from Arkansas. Bob's going to speak with us about the Arkansas District Signage Program and the successes and challenges thereof. Bob Fowler, please.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go quickly through this slide presentation, and then we'll take questions later on. In Arkansas, we have been in the process of looking at updating our conservation signage program for the last 2 to 3 years, and I'll give you a quick summary of some of our successes and some of the things that we have learned. Our old standard sign since 1930s and 40s has been similar to most of the U.S. Favorite came right out of the Dust Bowl days, wooden. It was very mainstay. It was very functional, economical. It was standardized throughout our state and matched a lot of the other states in the region. It's been a workhorse for a lot of years and served us well. Something we wanted to sit down and look at for the future was labor and maintenance. So we backed up, and over the last 2 to 3 years, through a lot of planning and a lot of implementation, we have come up with a 2-foot by 6-foot aluminum sign. And we've had a lot of participations. We had funding partners in our agency. Took a lot of compromising to get a design worked up. Everybody gave a little ground to come up with what we feel like is a quality product. It took a little pleading at times. But we feel like we've got a satisfactory aluminum back sign with 24-hour highly reflective material on it that we're starting a new direction with. All right, the ones that we've been into, we have them, the ones that we have now are highly adaptable. They work well on highway application. They work well at our district offices, and they work well on project application on site. We have a lot of flexibility in these. In that, we can go with wood or metal post, and these signs meet all federal and highway interstate regulations, so they can be placed about anywhere. And one thing that we have worked with and been surprised with is our partnership with the conservation districts themselves. We tried to allow flexibility in that our state organization furnished the signs and the posts at no cost to the districts, but we left it up to our local conservation districts to come up with their own location, how they wanted to apply them. Did they want them on their buildings? Did they want them on their lot? Did they want them at the county entrances or district entrances and district boundaries? And we found out that we've been pleased with our response. We got a lot of sweat equity from our conservation districts. They did some teamwork, partnership, putting them up, and they got a lot of local recognition. We stumbled over a lot of pride in our local districts to put these signs up. We've been pleasantly pleased with the program outcome so far. The districts, by turning them loose, they are very imaginative in where they put these signs. They have a lot of pride, and I'll be at district board meetings, and it's nice to have an argument between board members on their signs and where they're going to go up in their conservation district. One director will want it near his farm or on his side of the district, and another director will say, no, I want it on my side. I want it near my place. And that's a problem that you really get in. That's a nice problem to have for us. For applications, we have, again, we've emphasized flexibility at the local district level. We've had them put up on at school and field demo projects. We've had them put up at community gardens. And we found out that although they're kind of large at times, 2 feet by 6 feet, they are portable, and a lot of districts actually carry them from field day to field day, and will use them for their demo plots, envirothons, and the youth events. Overall, we have been pleased with them because one thing we have come up with, it adds pride and it's a morale factor for our conservation districts. And it's built a little better bridge between the state office, the state conservation organization, and some of the local conservation districts that we work with. From a current status standpoint, we now currently, after 2 years of implementation, we have 4 signs per district, 75 districts, 300 signs totally, statewide. Again, morale, teamwork, and public awareness are up. The negatives we've run into will be some of our districts are slow on installing them, and we have good and bad days with our highway department on installing these on highway right-of-way. The majority of our signs are winding up going off the highway right-of-way, but we anticipated this to a large extent. And when we built them, we made them a larger size with larger lettering to allow for these being placed just off the highway right-of-way on private property. And they're still visible and still do us a good job. For new ideas and things we're talking about in the future, we have some prototypes we're working on and just some new ideas. We're looking at a possibility in the future of using a smaller type sign. This would be a partially aluminum and type of fiberglass mixture with a somewhat reflective background. These will be different materials to our signs. They'll be smaller. They're more economical. They can be used interior or an office door, a hallway location. They can be used outside a building in flower beds or sidewalks to direct traffic into a district office. And they're also easy to handle and transport for our districts that would like to carry them to a field day or a local event. They are multi-location and multi-usage, and we've been studying this hard for the future as a possible direction. One other area that we'd like to take a look at in Arkansas, our logging industry has come a long ways since the 1970s and 80s when everything that you could get a dozer over was clear cut. And our timber industry, our forestry industry has done a great job of self-disciplining themselves for conservation, using buffer zones, limiting where they clear cut, and their conservation practices are self-imposed. They have trained. They have really done a good job of leaning toward conservation in the last 20 years, and we want to find a tool that will give them credit for this. It's quite common to have work site signs in Arkansas. We have caution log trucks in a timber harvesting area ahead. We would like to take this idea and move it a little bit further and emphasize safety and caution and combine that with conservation. We'd like to give our foresters credit for the hard work that they've done and sell the message of conservation logging. So many people still feel that logging is clear cutting. We would like to take a look at changing that concept and using these type work site signs either in addition to the previous signs they've got or adding to them. We think there's a possibility for this in our future. And we want to, again, give credit for the conservation and progress made by our forestry people over the last 20 years. These type signs for forestry would be very adaptable. They'll be all over the state in different terrain. They work well on different slopes. They're very weather adaptable. They can be left out for a period of time with no problems. And we even are looking at a high traffic or a high wind type sign that would work well if you are on the side of a highway with a lot of vehicular traffic stirring up wind, or if you're in an area with windy conditions. We have a heavy-duty rubber base, which would work well. We're taking a look at. One thing we did want to emphasize on this was ease of transport. If we're going to hand these out to logging crews, they're going to have to be user-friendly. They're going to have to be easy to transport and store, or they'll be left at the shop, or they'll be backed over with a skidder on the first week of the job, and progress will stop right there. We want them to be, we'd like for them to be quick setup. We'd like for them to be quick setup, high visibility, and we'd like them to promote safety and forest conservation. One other thing that we're looking at right now, again, we've got the combination signs here with conservation logging, high wind, normal usage. we're looking at one other thing that will work for controlled burning, and that's to push conservation burning for our forestry. We'd like to emphasize and sell that on the side of our highways to our public, where we have controlled burning taking place in our forestry. We would like to push that idea. We'd also like to transfer this over to the eastern part of our state and use these type signs for wheat stubble and rice stubble burning. In Arkansas, we're beginning to have a lot of problems and some public resistance to burning along highways and right-of-ways in wheat fields and rice fields in the spring and the fall. It's causing traffic problems and some respiratory problems when it's done near large areas. One other thing that we are looking at with these type signs would be what they call a pogo stand. This is a cheap, economical, short-term usage for controlled burns or stubble burning in the state of Arkansas, and would work well for farmers or forestry people or contract people in controlled burnings in timberland. These are just a few of the prototypes we're looking at in Arkansas to get some ideas for the future. Thank you very much, Ray.
Thank you for your presentation. And again, like Jim's presentation, and I'm sure the other presentations, we all want one of these for our place. I have one question for you, Bob. Let's start out with that, and then we'll go to our next speaker. Has any thought been given to putting a district name or the commission name or acronym on the logging signs, such as in coordination with?
These are prototypes on the logging signs. On the 2 foot by 6 foot metal signs, we have our state agency seal on there with the district name. On the logging signs, we'd like to. Right now, we're limited on space. We trade off space on the sign for visibility from the highway. We are looking at it, would love to give credit on that. I'm not sure we have enough room on the sign to work it all out and still have good visibility at 50 or 60 miles per hour on the side of the state highway, Ray. But we will certainly take a look at that and would love to go in that direction if we can.
Thanks, Bob. And you must have created some great working relationship with your Department of Transportation. Talk with the folks just a little bit about how you developed that.
Well, we've had good and bad days at that, Ray. I basically have worked with 3 different departments in our state highway department at the state headquarters. Spent a lot of time out there meeting people and gave up a lot of ground on compromise and working to meet their specs. We have also had, if you look at our 2 foot by 6 foot sign, you see the emblem, you see the district's name. I mentioned the word compromise, but that was really lightly. If you look at that sign, the original design we started out with several years ago, the only thing that we have not given up on that sign, there is a silver chrome border around the sign. Everything else has been compromised. We worked and we traded and we met with our people and discussed and did a lot of compromising on it to meet the highway specs, to meet our partner specs, to get funding, to carry the project forward. We did a lot of giving up. We worked with them real hard, but compromise was important all the way through to work with all of our partners and all the state agencies we had to go through. We have had some difficulties with highway right-of-way. We've had good and bad days on that. We have had to move in some locations. We have had local highway departments object to putting our signs up on their highway right-of-way. We've had to go back and move them just off the highway right-of-way on private property.
Well, thanks so much, Bob. And how about the cost of the large sign and the smaller signs that you're looking at? What kind of cost? Do you remember?
For the 2 foot by 6 foot fully reflective sign that meets all federal, interstate, and state regulations, our best price after dealing with 4 or 5 companies and getting prices, the sign itself was $207 with tax for the sign itself. Post ran about $36 each. Now we went a little bit higher on that. That is very high reflectivity, what they call 24-hour reflectivity. It's not just the lettering that's reflective and the silver trim around it, the background is even reflective. This was something that was demanded by the interstate regulations and the federal regulations. If we put them all up on private property just off the highway, we could, and we probably will in the future, cut some cost on that, and we can use cheaper materials. For the new signs, we're looking right now at our prototypes. For the smaller signs, we're looking at 3 different physical sizes, all small. They could be used inside a building, outside a building. We're probably going to be winding up in the $40 to $50 range for the actual sign itself, tax included.
Excellent. Bob, we thank you so much. Hang on here for more questions. I'm sure they're going to be coming through. We appreciate it. You can mute you on your end, and